Hey, thanks for dropping in the Horsepower Shop. Today, we're going to launch a project here that's like none we've tackled before. And it's all about an icon of American iron, the Tri-5 Chevy. You know, no doubt this thing's got a look that lives on almost 50 years after it first hit the streets. It's great to see restored beauties like this on the concourse, or even modified badass Bel Airs on the racetrack. Now, the convertibles and hardtops are cool, but we think nothing says classic shoebox like the two-door Post. Now, wouldn't it be great to keep the original character, but wrap it in a more modern-day box? Well, here's a rendering of what we hope to eventually wind up with.
And of course, to make classic beauty with contemporary technology, well, you've got to start with a frame. Now, the stock classic Chevy frame was state-of-the-art for the time. It used parallel leaf springs out back to locate the rear end and give a reasonable ride. What you're going to find up front are a pair of unequal length upper and lower control arms with a captured spring in the middle. Now, that's pretty standard stuff. But where this frame really falls down is in the area of torsional stiffness. If you'll check this out, you'll notice there's only one cross member up front here and a spreader bar out back. But what that does is allows the frame to really flex, and it also keeps a lot of the weight right up here on the front of the car.
Obviously, a lot of room for improvement. That's why for the foundation of our 55, we're going with this new GT Sport chassis from Art Morrison. This is the way it ships out the door, by the way. It starts out life, though, as a computer-designed 2x4 mandrel bent frame that's jig welded with mounts for the transmission, the engine, and of course the core support. And like the original, it features a front cross member, but a lot of the weight's been taken off this front end. Some of that weight winds up here where these internal frame supports virtually eliminate flex and provide a good mounting place for the transmission. By the way, this mount is designed to accommodate just about any drivetrain combination you come up with. Oh, and here's a cool feature. The exhaust passes through this support structure for a cleaner look and a low ride height.
Out back, it doesn't look like the original at all. The leaf springs are gone in favor of a coilover setup that we'll show you later. And the 9-inch rear end, well, that's held in by a computer-designed triangulated 4-bar setup. This chassis has been designed to fit all Tri-5 body styles, whether you're building a convertible, coupe, wagon, or even a sedan. What we'll get is classic styling with contemporary handling.
Well, here's our 55 chassis that we just got back from the paint shop. Now, as you can see, it's already been stripped of all the components. And what I'm doing here is running a tap down all of the thread holes to make sure that we clean out all the paint and any debris that might have gotten stuck in there. There we go. Now we're ready to start assembling our front suspension. Here's a little tip for you. Let's put a little bit of wheel bearing grease on each one of these bushings here, about like that, to keep them from binding up once they're installed. Now, you also want to make sure that you go ahead and put a little bit of anti-seize on each one of these bolt threads here to keep them from galling as well. The upper and lower control arms are the first to get bolted up. Then the spindle. And the rack and pinion, followed by these coilovers from Strange. Hey, before we go any further, I want to show you this recirculating ball steering box that comes stock in all classic Tri-5 Chevys. Now, this thing is ugly, it's heavy, and it's old technology, so what we've done is replaced it with this rack and pinion setup here from AGR. Of course, it's power assisted, and you can get it in a couple of different ratios. You can get it in a quick 15-to-1 Corvette style ratio like what we've got here, or you can get a more conservative 20-to-1 ratio.
Well, there's nothing conservative about our brake setup. That front suspension uses a Mustang 2 spindle, and that allows us to use a system like this one from Wheelwood Engineering. Now, these rotors measure a massive 13 inches, and of course, they're drilled and slotted for improved cooling and degassing of the pads. Calipers? Well, how about this 6-piston design for improved clamping force? Now, while we are building a lighter, more contemporary version of the shoebox, we need some heavy-duty brakes to bring it to a halt. The first thing to go on is this caliper bracket, followed by the rotor and the caliper. By the way, we're loading these calipers with some polymatrix low noise, low dust pads with a special material to increase the friction coefficient and decrease our stopping distance. Right now, we need to stop for a different kind of brake, but we still got the rear end, engine, trans, and well, a lot more to go, so stick with us. Later in the show, we'll see how they build a unique new body for our shoebox, from filling the fiberglass molds to popping out the finished pieces. These guys have our 55 chassis covered in style.
Hey, welcome back to our Tri-5 chassis buildup. Now, if you're just joining us, you better sit down and strap in because we've just launched one of our most exciting projects ever. It's a nut and bolt buildup of a contemporary classic 55 Chevy. Now, we've just finished bolting up the front suspension, steering, and brakes on our Art Morrison chassis. Now, it's time to move out back.
The centerpiece of our setup back here is this Curry Track 9 rear end, spinning a set of 370 gears and a Detroit locker bolted to it. Now, later today, we plan on dropping in that 502 ramjet into our frame, so we need a rear end that's up to the task. For axles, we're going with these hefty 35 spline pieces, also from Curry, and we'll notice how the bearings are pressed into the axles, and well, it's all held in place with this retaining plate. That way, in the unlikely event this thing snaps, it stays in the rear end and you stay in your lane. Well, we can't install these, though, until we do some work on the brakes.
Now we can go ahead and install the last rear control arm. And with all that power going to the rear end, we're going to need something pretty beefy to keep it planted and give us a good ride. Now, Morrison designed these using an 1 3/8 seamless steel tubing with a 9.5 wall thickness. And to top it all off, he even included an adjustable poly bush stainless steel end to help us fine-tune the suspension a little better.
We're using strange coilovers out back too, and one of the nice things that I like is you can get the springs in a variety of rates here to help compensate for the suspension load. Now, that's really going to come into play later on when we show you the fiberglass body we're going to bolt onto the frame. Now, here's something else I really like too. You can actually control the ride height by adjusting on these nuts right here, and this knob controls your ride quality.
Now, if you remember, we used Willwood brakes up front, and we're going to follow up with a set of their Dynalite Pro rear brakes out back here. These are designed for the street with an integral parking brake, and these 12-inch rotors come with an internal drum that makes it all work. Now, for calipers, we're going to go with this 4-piston design that will also fill with those polymatrix pads. Now, you might notice here that I've already got the parking brake pre-assembled to the caliper bracket, and this thing gets bolted up first. Then we can slide in the axle, followed by this retainer plate. Next is the rotor, and finally the caliper.
So far, we've bolted up a lot of high-tech hardware, all in the name of helping our 55 really carve those corners. But, you know, the 55 never came with a sway bar, so we're going to add a couple of them. The front one measures 1 inch in diameter, and the rear one is a full 3/4 of an inch. Now, here's something that's pretty cool, though. They both use urethane mounts where they bolt up to the frame, and the end links use spherical rod ends here, and what that's going to do is virtually eliminate all the body roll, and it's really going to help keep that rubber glued to the road.
Speaking of rubber, check out the rolling stock we're going to use. B.F. Goodrich just came out with a new line of their popular G-Force TA Performance tires called the KDW. Now, this thing is an all-weather, directional open tread design, and they've got them to fit rim sizes from 15 to 24 inches.
For our rims, we went with a set of Nostalgia GTs that measure 17 by 8 up front and 18 by 9.5 in the rear. Now, they're a rotary forged billet design that are available in diameters that range from 15 to 20 inches. Now, you can get them polished like we have here or with a gray powder-coated center.
Yeah, well, like our 55, these wheels are a timeless design with an up-to-the-minute twist that allows us to run high-tech rubber. In case you're wondering about the sizes, back here we've got a 285/60 R18, and here we've got a 225/45/17 that goes up front. So I guess I'll have to be up front with you about this too. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to bolt in this 502 and an automatic overdrive transmission, so stick with us.
Hey, we're back and ready to drop some big block power into our 55's frame. Of course, today is the first time we've had some fun with one of these 502 ramjets here in the shop. A few seasons ago, we staged a big block crate engine shootout where we showed you all the parts, everything from the steel crank and forged pistons to the roller cam and aluminum heads. Before those parts were put to the challenge and competition on our dyno jet. So we got GM Performance Parts to send us this one for the 55. Now we know it's a powerful package, but one that's easy to get up and running. All it needs is 12 volts, some fuel, and an exhaust system. Now once installed, it's going to make about 510 horsepower at 5,100 RPMs, 565 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200. I'd say that's a lot of grunt for about $9 grand.
And what GM sent us is the latest version of the ramjet. Now, they've made some improvements to the computer that include provisions for an O2 sensor, and, well, that's going to allow the EFI to operate in a closed-loop mode. Now, you may not know this, but some of the earlier ramjets had a problem with a fat fuel mixture, and, well, these changes are going to improve the cold start and the idle quality while sharpening up the throttle response. Now, they've also added a diagnostic port right here in the wiring harness that's going to allow you to monitor the trouble codes. Well, we've already gone ahead and removed this top plenum, as you can see, and that's going to allow us to put the chain to it, get the motor over here so that we can mate it up with our transmission.
To make our 55 truly roadworthy, we wanted an overdrive transmission to make it a long-range cruiser, but we also needed one that could hold up to the massive power of that big 502. So we went with this 4L80E from TCI. It's an electronic transmission that's controlled by the computer, and since it was designed for medium-duty trucks, it'll be more than enough to handle the torque of our 55. Let's get it bolted up.
All right, how we looking there, Joe?
Looking good.
Good deal.
Keep it coming.
All right. All right, we're going to come down with it a little bit now. Looking good in the back?
I think so.
All right.
With the engine and trans bolted down, I can go ahead and measure for our drive shaft. And it looks like about 51 3/4 inches. I'll go call that in.
Well, it looks like we made a good call on our headers, too. Now, what we were looking for was a set that would tuck up nice and tight to the block here and still give us plenty of clearance around the frame and access for our steering shaft. So we went ahead and spec'd out a set of these Hooker block hugger headers with the optional metallic ceramic coating.
We're fabbing up the exhaust today using some 2.5-inch mandrel bent tubing from Flowmaster. Now it involves a lot of cutting and fitting, but once we get it all pieced together, Flowmaster will use it as a template to bend up a system out of aluminized tubing.
Hey, Mike, you did a great job on these pipes here, man. Everything is fitting up just like it should.
Well, you guys are ready for these now. Our mufflers are going to be these Flowmaster hush powers that we showed you a few weeks ago on Hot Parts. They're designed to fit in tight places, and that whole outer wrap is an integral heat shield, and that's particularly important with a fiberglass floor.
That's it for the exhaust, and man, those pipes sure do fit nice and tight through the chassis. No ugly pipes hanging down here.
Yeah, and you know what else? It's going to look even better once the final version gets bent up.
Well, that's about all the time we have in the shop for today, but after the break, Joe's going to take you on a bodybuilding exercise for our Super Shoebox.
Hey, Super Shoebox, you know, I kind of like that. Gives a whole new meaning to the term Chevy SS.
Hey, welcome back to the show. The original 55 Chevy had a pretty cool classic look, right? Well, our 55 SS is going to be even cooler thanks to this chopped top and a bodybuilding exercise you're about to witness here at Bohannon Concepts.
Just cut it off right here. Just like
Okay, okay.
John Bohannon has a reputation for being one of the best in his business, crafting fiberglass to replicate cool car bodies. And turning an idea like the 55 SS into a reality requires his kind of experience.
Everything has to fit perfect. Everything has to be coordinated. You can't build one thing and then build another thing. You have to build it all together to make everything match up and work.
John has incorporated some cool touches never featured on the original 55, like this dash top that comes off so you can work on things like the AC or even the master cylinder. Of course, the process starts with a series of correct molds from a 55 that are sprayed with gel coat. Then 3 layers of fiberglass bonded with resin, along with a catalyst to prevent shrinking. The molds must set up overnight before they're ready to come out. How about the one-piece floorboard for the 55 SS? Now, after a little trimming with a grinder to smooth the pieces out, they're ready for the next step, which in our case is a coat of liquid insulation called lizard skin that we're trying out. It contains tiny ceramic particles filled with air to shield the body from heat and act as a sound deadener.
Ideally, we would put it on both sides of this floor pan, right?
Absolutely, because the single place that you have the most heat and noise gain is the bottom of your car. We've never been able to insulate or sound suppress the bottom of the car before, but now you can. And because it forms a seamless membrane, and it won't crack or come apart. So you can do both sides, and then you end up sandwiching the floorboard with insulation and sound suppression material.
Well, in a couple of weeks, we'll drop this body onto the chassis we built, and John's dream and ours of the new 55 Super Shoebox gets closer to reality.
It makes you feel good to see people that has your car and people that look at your car and brag on it. It really makes you feel good.
Rain-X has a reputation for a treatment that repels rain from your car's windshield. Well, now they got something that'll keep the elements from attacking your car's paint. This Ultra Wax is a specially formulated liquid wax that uses a polymer coating to seal your vehicle's surface. And it'll protect it from all the elements, including those harmful UV rays. Now, it goes on easy with this sponge applicator, and it leaves a long-lasting, high-gloss finish.
You know, anybody who's tried to turn a nut in a tight spot has probably said some words they wouldn't want their mother to hear. So, you're going to be glad to hear about this open-end ratchet from Alden Wrench. Now, it features a movable head that actually locks on the fastener and increases the grip as more torque is applied. It only requires a 30-degree swing to rotate the fastener and grip the next flat on the nut. Now, they're available in both standard and metric sizes, and both of them come with a lifetime guarantee. And I tell you what, I also guarantee you're going to like the price, too, at under 30 bucks.
Well, we got a great start today on our 55 SS.
Yeah, we did. And we're going to be back in a few more weeks for the next phase of our build-up.
Well, it's time to go, but like the old maid said to the peeping Tom, thanks for looking in.